let me admit that I'm the problem. Bringing up your non-cancerous tumor is actually a pretty good way to get to know someone pretty quick.
Hello and welcome back to the U Up Podcast. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Jared Freed. It is so good to be back here with you, Jordana. We are here in cuffing week here on the U Up Podcast, Betches Media. We're dubbing this cuffing week.
Yes.
And
we would know. We are your dating non-experts.
That's right. We are your dating friends, your pals, your amigos, your confidants,
Yes.
I would say. We are your go-to people when you have a dating problem. Come to J&J. And you know why you come to us? I like to explain to people why they
Let them know.
We're idiots. We're stupid.
Yes.
We're losers. But we are honest losers. We are the beauty of a podcast is you can write in here. We're not going to give out your name, your number, your pictures. We're not going to try and slam dunk you. We're going to have an open and honest conversation about your problem without having to make eye contact with you.
Right. So you know you're getting the truth.
Right. Your friends lie to you. Your friends just want to get to their shit.
Yes.
Right? They're like, oh, cool. Oh, that guy you've been seeing. Enough. Get to me. We are all about you. We're actually the only ones that care about you. Your friends and family don't give a shit about you.
Exactly. You heard it here first. Tell your therapist.
Well, so cuffing season, what does it mean to you?
Right.
Because people go too early on cuffing season. To me, it's always like you hear about it in September. I'm like, no. September is like, September's fucked season. You know, like that's like.
You're still in it.
You're still in it. We are in November.
I mean, it's been 80 degrees until like last week.
Right.
So there's no reason
in New York City.
There's no reason to lock someone down.
And there's no reason to panic.
With this kind of global
okay. The world isn't on
warming.
fire. We're totally fine.
Yes.
I think it's cuffing season now because right now, and I had this happen to me. I've had this happen to me where it is insane because let me admit that I'm the problem.
Okay.
Okay. I have been like talking with a woman that I'm seeing and they're like kind of like what's going on for the holidays like that.
Oh wow.
That conversation comes up.
What goes through your head when you are talking to a woman and she's like what's the deal with the holiday? How do they phrase it?
It's kind of in the way we're saying it right now. What's the deal with the holidays?
What's your deal for the holiday? What's our deal?
What's the
what are
deal?
We
I
thinking?
think they're still in the territory
okay.
of
That's
like
safe. That's safe.
It's very safe, and it is insane. I'm admitting this, where I'm like, oh, what's the deal for the holidays? I'm going to go home to high school again. Like, in my mind, I'm 24 years old. I'm 22
Forever.
in college.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm going to go to mommy and daddy's house and get my laundry done and then go back to college. And it's like, I remember I said that. I'm like, Jared, you're 39. What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? They're asking what, we're doing. What's the plan here? Your house, my house, are we even there yet? You know?
Reminds me of that meme of like Uber, Lyft. Like, what do you mean? My mom will pick us up if your mom can drop us off.
Right. Right. It is this like, it's almost like I come out of like a coma of like to figure out my age again.
Right.
I think this time of year wakes you up to like, okay, I am my age. Summertime, easy breezy, 25 years old forever. The sun's never going to set. Now, this time of year, you're like, all right, well, we got to start making plans here. Yeah.
It's time to cash in the check.
You wrote a couple checks this summer.
Yeah, a couple. There's a few people.
I'm just saying, you've made a lot of promises.
Well, and the other side of it, I think, for a lot of women or people in general, you've been emotionally masturbating about this special cuffed up holiday season for a while. So by the time they bring it to you, by the time it's what's going on with, that's not the first time they've thought about it.
Oh, absolutely.
They've been thinking about it since date 2 or date 3.
Mm-hmm.
But it's finally become close enough and socially acceptable enough for them to throw it out there as like it's a little bit of a test.
And
how you answer.
That's the thing. Sometimes it's an of course. Of course, what are we doing?
Right.
And you're like, everything, you're like, how did this happen so easily?
Yeah. And I've had it both ways. And I've had what New Year's, Chris, what do you I've got this party that I'm going to.
I've got a party.
I've got a party.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, it is.
What are you doing is I think the worst.
What's
I've
your
got
plan?
this. What are you doing is probably the worst thing that you can hear.
Right. And
what did you say?
I say nothing. I'm
Well,
like,
when they're like, "What's going on? What's the deal with the holidays?"
I haven't even thought of it yet.
Is
Like,
that the worst? Is that worse? No, that's not worse.
No,
That's not worse.
There's an element of like, well, I'm just going home. I'm heading towards my parents. I guess I'll be with them.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Right.
You know, you like volley it back, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, you know, the cuffing season thing, because there's nothing, no one envisions themselves getting ready for a first date in January. You know,
Yeah,
like
that's not
putting on 7
that's not
layers.
the romanticized version.
No, that's not how
right.
you want to look on a date. It's like Halloween. You don't want to put your jacket on over the costume.
Right.
You know, you don't want to put a jacket on over, you know, your sleeping bag coat over your nice clothes for the first date and taking it off 30 layers. I don't know.
Is this the time of year that you're either slowly backing away or slowly walking towards?
It's one or the other. You know, to me, COVID's always a great example of for relationships where it's like things either ramped up or they went backwards. And I think every year, this time of year is you're going to go in one or the other direction. You're going to get answers. And that's hard because that's why this cuffing season thing exists. Because it's like if you want to avoid it, you can try, but you can't. Because conversations are built into what are you doing for the holidays? What are you doing for New Year's? These are questions you have to ask anyone that you've been on a few dates with.
Right.
So built into that is an answer to what are we? Are we New Year's couple? Or are we you do your thing, I do my thing, we meet later after the ball drops?
Right. Well, here's my other question is could it be you do your thing, I do my thing, and the relationship is still viable? Or not really?
It can be, but it's all
bad sign.
It's a bad sign, but it's also like a conversation has to be had. You know, I think the minute you're having those conversations, the minute you're like, the minute
it's not obvious is usually the minute you kind of know what's going on.
Right. And I think no one wants to be half anything. There's nothing worse than being half.
Right.
In relationships.
But don't you say men love vague?
They do, but I think they love vague to a certain point. Because the minute vague turns into, well, I'm half seeing someone, so I half feel bad when I'm going out with someone new.
Right.
You know, you're in a position of like, am I lying? There's two ways to tell the story. You know, there's a way where I'm the villain and there's the way where I'm the innocent one.
Right.
And that's a lot of dating. Like you can tell a story any way you want. You can tell, we're seeing, on TikTok with a lot of like breakup stories and relationship stories and story time stuff. And, you see famous people going, we're not going to get into this, but the Zach Bryan, Brianna chicken fry thing.
Right.
They're controlling the narrative.
Who's controlling the narrative?
It seems as though this has become like
the narrative seems a little unhinged, actually.
Well, that's what. I'm saying that's the thing. Like Zach Bryan seems to have no narrative.
Right. He made a very bad attempt to control the narrative.
Did he?
The beginning, I think. He was the first one who like put up a story.
So he puts up a story, but then it isn't enjoyed that like this is not the story
You can't put up a story with that uncorroborated story and expect it to be that was sort of like the naivete, I guess, of like that kind of thing. Because I'm like, in my mind, it's in the world of celebrity or even anyone with a platform to put out a statement uncosigned by the other person is like the most dangerous move you can make. Well, it's just like
we've discussed this with the Jason Tardik.
That was cosigned,
exactly.
At least the one with Caitlin
Bristow.
Right,
they put up a joint post, but they are professional social media people.
Right.
This is a professional musician who has social media.
Does he have a team?
I don't think they think of it in the same way. To him, the music people love my music.
Right. It's his platform isn't his only, isn't like, his personality isn't his job.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's why you don't care about it. How you're getting perceived and what's going on.
Right. Because you think your talent will supersede that.
And generally for musicians get away with we still listen to the music from some pretty horrific people.
Yeah.
Like who have done, I mean, I'm not going to, I guess I can't like great. I don't know the story well enough to.
I mean, I don't either. I didn't know really anything about the relationship. I've only the obvious. This is the much more interesting part is the breakup. Of course,
That's why people tune in. That's why it's gotten to us
Yes.
outside of the universe.
Right.
But when you're telling the story of like where you are in a relationship with someone, you know, it goes all way. You know, like the idea of like, are you with someone?
Mm-hmm.
One person's I'm with them is another person's I've been seeing them.
Right.
You know,
One person's we're dating
is another person's I've been on a few dates. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where this time of year gets confusing because it's like, am I a been on a few dates person to this person?
Right.
Or am I someone they're dating?
Or am I, what are we doing for Thanksgiving?
Right. And,
Yeah.
you know, to me, as a straight guy going through this whole thing in this mess of a dating world, to me, when you agree to what are we doing Thanksgiving, there's an agreement of we are moving to the next step. We are talking about like this is
Yeah.
you know,
that's
this
a
is
big deal.
This is a launch.
Right. I mean,
you
I
know,
think there's
like I can now get in trouble for this relationship.
Yeah.
I think that, and I don't mean to sound so negative, but like I do think a lot of men kind of like hover around this idea of what are we to not have future issues.
Right.
You know,
to
they're
give
not
themselves more rope.
right.
Right. But I think it's interesting because you can light cuff. What are we doing for Thanksgiving? Your place or mine is a heavy cuff. To me is a launch. Just like you said. To me, what are you doing the night before Thanksgiving? What are or do you want to go to this Christmas party with me? Is
Different
not
story.
the same thing. It's a cuff.
Right.
It's a cuff and that's a lighter cuff to me.
Right. It's hard. I mean, this time of year is so difficult. And it starts in the summer. Like,
Well, it's a difficult time to be single. It's a lonely time, I think, to be single.
we have these statistics of why people want to get cuffed in the winter. And they targeted millennials.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, here are the choices. Hang out.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to cuff up so you have someone to hang
out with. Fair.
Cuddle and stay warm.
Okay.
Not feel lonely. I would consider cuddle and stay warm as not feel lonely, like one and the same.
Stay warm to me means I don't have to I don't have to put on my 16 layers and I don't have to put on my gloves to go on a date.
Right.
It's more like it's less fun to go on a date than it is in the summer. To me, that's almost like the same thing as cuddle and stay warm is like I don't have to leave my apartment when it's so cold out.
I can watch a movie on a Thursday with someone instead of
right, doing my hair and doing a whole thing in the freezing cold just to have a shitty date.
Mm-hmm. Sex was one of the options, someone to have sex with.
Millennials, it's funny though because they do total and they do millennials, and I assume the other big part of the total that's not millennials is like Gen Z. I would imagine. And in that case, it's funny that's a bigger reason for millennials than the total because you do hear that Gen Z isn't really it doesn't really care that much about sex.
Right.
That's like the word on the street, right?
But it seems like it's the millennials are outpacing everyone else.
I guess we should look at like what the top reason is.
Right. The top reason is to cuddle and stay warm.
Right.
Over sex, which is
yeah, I could see that. I think that would be my probably order of wanting to be cuffed.
So millennials over everyone else want to bring people to holiday parties, do winter activities, and binge TV shows.
Well, let's discuss. This is interesting about millennials versus non-millennials. As a man, let's talk about men versus women in a heterosexual men versus heterosexual women. Let's say hypothetically, what do you think is like the top as a 10% away from everyone heterosexual man? What is your top reason to get cuffed?
It's so interesting you say that because like I'm looking at all these and I'm like, all these seem nice.
Okay.
Like, of course I want someone to watch TV with, and of course I
want
want someone
skating?
to fuck. And so I don't know about ice skating, but it would be nice to go to a party and like enjoy someone's company. None of these seem more important than a disaster. Like,
okay,
I think
the good of these
doesn't outweigh doing them with anyone. Like, I don't need these things. I can be, I think of like, if you're watching The Golden Bachelor right now, men are very good at just being alone for long periods of time. and not talking to
Too
anyone
good
about
it.
Really
maybe.
too good.
Yeah.
Being alone and on my phone at a bar, like I am totally at ease, comfort, no problems. I've said this, the only thing that could ruin my life is a woman.
Okay.
So like all of these things sound just started I'm just saying all of these things sound great, but with the wrong person seem like prison.
Well, why
on
are you
earth.
assuming they're the wrong
Hell.
person?
I'm just saying that like you could be sitting
Anything
there
with the wrong person is hell,
right. And I think this is like my anxiety, but I think this is like I was with friends over the weekend. We're all talking about they're married, they got kids. They're looking at me. They're like, we're happy, and it's hard. They're like,
those can be true at the same time,
right?
yeah.
And they're going, and they literally, the one thing they said to me, and I thought this was so interesting. They're like, keep being alone. They were like,
are they saying this?
Well,
to
they
you?
were like, don't
you.
make a concession. They were like, their whole thing, not keeping it. That makes them sound bad. And these are happy men, happy people, kids, the whole deal. And they are where I would see myself being. And they're like,
you said you were wanting a girlfriend.
I'm in the girlfriend game.
I remember.
You remember. If you remember, people
Yeah.
remember. But they were just like, but don't do it with someone just to do it. That was their whole thing. Well, of course. Everyone says of course, but every girl I've ever dated was like ready to go. With me, like
maybe
a big
they're just
fucking
not
fat loser.
Maybe
like I'm annoyed at how sure
maybe
they were.
But
We'll see. And I'm like
But I think you're taking don't settle or make sure it's the right person with. I think you're confusing that with don't compromise. And I don't think that's the same thing.
I agree with you. I don't think that is the same thing. They're saying do it with someone you like truly enjoy having these times with. Like,
of course.
But I think
isn't that a given?
Again, but like when we look at these numbers, like why do you want cuffing season? Why do you want to be with someone? And it's like to me, like when I see sex on this, I'm like, yes, sex with someone that I want out of my apartment is horrific. Like I like at this age, like sex isn't like. There's so many opportunities where it's like, do I want to go home with this person? Or would I be like,
maybe the issue is that
happier masturbating alone? Like I just like
maybe the issue is that you don't really like anyone then.
Yeah, I that might be an issue. I mean, I'm just saying like.
I'm saying, do you think like in all the people you've dated, there's not one where you're like, or a few probably, where you're like, yeah, all this shit sounds great. I wouldn't be like settling or giving something up. Or...
Right. I don't think of it as settling. And I do think I would be fine with probably anyone I did, but I'm like.
Not anyone, but
maybe not anyone. I think like I've definitely dodged some situations that wouldn't have been happiness.
You, yeah.
But now that I'm on the outside looking in at a relationship, like when you're in it, it's like, this is great. There's no other option. Like you're in it.
Yeah.
When you're out of it, looking into this, and I'm like looking into this, yeah, I want to sit on the couch with someone and watch this cool TV shows, and I want to like, have sex, and I want to, cuddle and stay warm, and I want to go to nice dinners, and I want to not have to get dressed and go out and do that with someone, and I want all those things, but from the outside looking in, I'm like, if that's with the wrong person, if I'm sitting on the couch with someone and I'm like, was this the right decision?
Right.
I'm like, man, for a lifetime?
Okay, but like, so you're saying you have to be 100% sure to enjoy doing that? No one's saying
that's why I'm saying from the outside
right.
looking in.
Yeah.
Like it's like it becomes this harder mountain to get over.
Right. I think what seems confusing though is like you can do all this cuffing season shit, and then in the spring say actually you're kind of annoying and break up with them, and that is something that is totally okay.
Right. I think as someone who's been through breakups and been that person was like,
doesn't feel like it's okay.
It doesn't feel like it's okay. It actually feels like, and as someone who's like ended relationships where I've been told, like, you've ruined my life.
Well, that's something that I bet you if you asked that person.
My tester during the winter.
I bet you if you asked that person that now, they would say they were overreacting.
I think that's something you should have to go back to people and say.
I've done that.
You have?
Yes.
You're a very nice person.
I
have a lot of people out there that I'm like, are they still like, I'm sure they're not. I know they're not, but I
Right.
never got the letter in the mail, but they're like,
Well, I mean,
thank you for letting me
Maybe
have
they-
my beautiful husband and kids that I have now. Like,
Right.
I never got that message.
well, rejection stings, right? So like they're not like, oh, let me like go find the person to make them feel better that rejected me. That person they assume is doing just fine, and you are. But I do think if you ask that in the heat of the moment, people feel very strongly about things and they have beliefs that are not really true, and they don't realize that until later. That maybe you did them a favor.
Right. I would hope they did. That was always what people said to me. When I was like, I think I'm going to end it with this person, they're like, you're doing them a favor. Let them go. If you're not in it, they're going to be happier.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, that's kind of what I go on.
But I'm saying, but if you truly believed that, then I think you would be more interested in getting into more relationships, just having more relationships that maybe don't end in marriage, which is fine. An interesting thing also from this research study is that men are more likely than women, 47% to 35%, to say that deliberately dating someone for a short period of time is worthwhile. So most men, it seems like, don't agree with you, that they do agree you could date someone for a short period of time and it is worthwhile. Or do you think that you just don't think women don't?
I think it's worthwhile.
You just don't think women think it's worthwhile.
Right. To me, I think that percentage is guys saying, I'd love to like just fuck for a little bit.
Right.
They're saying it's worthwhile to me to have a 3-monther.
Right.
And the women are saying 32% of women
35.
are likely to say that short-term relationships are a waste of time. So that's the
Well,
fear is like, I
right.
know that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That 3 months with me is not paradise.
Well, here's the thing. I think that you need to that you need to give women more agency to I think a woman who's been dating for a while, who's interested in something in a long-term serious relationship, should be able to pick up on the man's readiness to do that within the first 6 dates.
Right.
I think a woman who's been around the block, and I think the older
I actually think it's harder to tell.
you think
I think
with you or in general?
With me, but based on the emails that we've gotten, like I think my sussing out period is way longer than maybe
I
the
agree.
6 dates. You know, like
But if I had gone on 6 dates with you, I think, and I had been if I'm someone who's dating and I've listened to your show and I've heard you speak, and I'm one of the 32% of women who say that short-term relationship are a waste of time. If I keep dating you, that's on me.
Right. I do believe that. But I think this guy, Scott Galloway, he does a lot of like straight men talk.
Okay.
He's like been in the news a lot because he's been kind of like giving kind of like reasons for how men act.
Okay.
You know, based on like aspirational masculinity. He's like I would consider him the like liberal Andrew Tate.
Okay.
You know, like I enjoy his videos. He's a NYU professor, I think, and he talks a lot about like the wealth gap, and he's got like a lot of he's made a lot of good points to me.
Okay.
But he had this whole thing about like what women are attracted to, and like and based on statistics, it was like the ability to like earn in the future. Do they take their life seriously? Like, do men take their life seriously? Are they put together? Like, these are all things that matter in a way, like as far as protection and like going back to like cavemen days.
Sure.
And that's why I think if you're like 6 dates in with someone, like there's so much other things. You're like, look at their, they can put themselves together for a date. They can make a plan. They can, like those things kind of like weigh into that. I can also understand that like
why someone might think that
like I do those things and I just like to do those things.
Sure.
Like but whether I'm like
a different person who maybe was like really, really ready for a relationship, 6 dates in might be like, and I want you to, my mom's in town. I want you to meet her. I don't think that's something you would say. Or
they could say it. I mean, they could say, "Hey, what do
you think?" Or what if we did a trip?
Right.
I think that, and the person's and the response for someone who's like really, really ready for that, not at all interested in a short-term relationship because they think they're a waste of time, is different than yours.
Right.
I think it just would be. And so I think that you're not giving women enough like credit or agency. And I think that like if you're a woman who's dating someone and you're not asking those questions, and you're one of the 32% of women who think that short-term relationships is a waste of time, then that's a little bit on you.
You have to speak up about it.
Yeah,
Is
like,
this a
and again,
short-term
like
relationship?
that's what we teach. And if we talk going back to patting ourselves on the back, we say this. I say this all the time. We say this all the time. Part of the show is teaching you how to be a better consumer of men, better dater, better person who knows how to ask the right questions, who feels empowered by asking questions, who doesn't wait for someone to wait to see how someone feels about them, to take the relationship into their own hands. And if you're not doing that, then yeah, you're gonna wind up in maybe more short-term relationships that you think are a waste of time.
And that's kind of what the cuffing season thing is all about. It's like, this is the time of year where conversations are more natural because it's in the calendar. You know, already, whether you want it to be or not, Thanksgiving's coming. You know, like holiday party's coming. New Year's Eve is coming. You get past this part of the year, it's Valentine's Day. There's a big desert of, you know, not built-in conversations. You know, like this time of year, it's every week.
Yeah.
What's next? What are you doing? What are your plans? So I got to get ahead. My office party's happening.
And if you want to be cuffed, there's 6 dates in. I think you can cuff someone.
Oh,
How many dates in do you think you can cuff someone?
I think you can cuff someone. I think you can. I like what you said about light cuffing versus heavy cuffing. I think you can light cuff someone within 4 dates.
Agreed.
And be like, and talk about your future plans and how do you feel about that? And
that's what I'm saying.
I'll be doing this. The text I always say is, I'm off the apps. I'm concentrating on this. Like that's a light cuff.
And that's what I'm saying. And if you're again one of the 32% of women who are likely to say that short-term relationships are a waste of time, you should be doing that.
It's a very gray area. That's why I brought up the idea of like heroes and villains.
Right.
You know, it's really easy to tell the story of like, I'm out there dating and I've been on a few dates with that person and oh yeah, it's holidays time, whatever, you know. But it's interesting. I mean, like, this is the week for it. We are in it.
We are in it. And it's cuffing week.
Cuffing week, and we're going to be back help some
Get
of the
your
listeners
handcuffs
here.
out.
Get them out. All right, let's take a quick break, then we'll help out some of the listeners and save dating again.
All right, I'll read our first email.
Before we get into it, if you're out there and you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma this weekend, Tulsa, Oklahoma, also Dania Beach, Tarrytown, we're almost sold out. There's like single seats left, which is great.
Might be sold out by the time you hear this.
That's right. So there's taping a special in December, and then I'm coming to Portland, Oregon. I'm
Australia.
coming to Australia, which should be out by now, I hope. I'm coming to Phoenix, jaredfree.com for tickets, all the stand-up shows. All right, what are we talking about today?
All right. Hey, J&J, I, 27-year-old female, have never had a boyfriend, but desperate...
Nerd alert!
I've never... He's joking. This is very common.
27. I just think this is such like a female written email to me. Like,
of course, though.
I
you have to understand the
her.
reasons why societally we're made to feel embarrassed about that fact.
Totally understand it. This is me making fun of it to let her know it's okay.
No one cares, right?
No one cares. I think sometimes women judge that of men. He's never been in a relationship. I get that too, but I don't think it matters even then. Like,
well, here's the other part of the sentence, which I think also has to do with that, which is, but desperately want one.
Okay.
So I think anytime you desperately want something and don't have it, I can see feeling insecure or anxious about the fact that you don't have it also.
Everything. I hope my laughing at her helps her.
Yeah.
I know that's a bad way to go about it, maybe.
It's a compliment.
It is a compliment. I just think, no, and I agree. Like, that's the premise here. 27-year-old, never had a boyfriend, desperately want one. Okay.
Right.
You are we now see you clear. You're coming into focus. But I would say, I think you're okay. I remember my dad, used to, fuck with me when I was in high school. He's like, none of you guys go on dates. When back in my day, you knock on the door, give a flower, take them out to the lookout point, an old man shit. And I remember being like, this is just different. Like, this is just not how we do it. And even now, today, like, you go to college, like, people are hooking up. It's hookup culture. It's not, will you go out with me? It's, it's all different now. So I think, like, when someone writes that, I think the grace they have to give themselves is, this is way more normal. This is, this is a product of the atmosphere, more than you're this unlikable woman, I hope that helps.
Totally. Some would say that I haven't prioritized dating because I don't love the apps, but I'm still on them, just not as active as I could be. Although I haven't prioritized dating, I've been seeking out.
Hold on, before you go on. Some would say, my mom says that's not
Yes.
Some would say I don't prioritize dating. That mom, like that doesn't. What do you mean some?
Yeah,
who said that to you?
Maybe the brunch table of marrieds.
I don't think you need to treat dating like at 27, like it's like.
I get it. They're like, this is something I want.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I don't have. This is something I'm talking about with the people around me. Like, how do I get this thing that I really want?
I get that, but the idea of like prioritizing dating,
right?
Like it's just interesting. Okay.
Although I haven't prioritized dating, I have been seeking out sex.
Yeah, you have.
This is where we get the mature
Jared.
content. I was on Field, a commitment-free sex app, for a while and had a lot of fun experiences, but ended up deleting it because I realized that having casual sex didn't align with my long-term goals and standards.
Damn it.
I feel like I made the right call, but recently I've been thinking about re-downloading it because I feel lonelier than ever and I miss having sex and intimacy in my life. All I want is a boyfriend, so I don't think I should have sex casually anymore because it doesn't align with my goals. But at the same time, my sex drive isn't going anywhere. Is it okay to have casual sex when it isn't helping me reach my dating goals? Or should I stay abstinent indefinitely until I start dating someone? Sincerely, hornily romantic.
It's a great sign-off. It's a great email. How do you feel about it?
What's interesting, she just doesn't align with my goals. I would ask myself a different question, which is like, how do I feel before, during, and after?
Mm-hmm.
How do I think about your own, like the goals? I think are like its own separate thing. Like I think you can parallel pursue multiple goals and get, feel physical intimacy with someone who doesn't turn into your boyfriend. I think the question to ask herself is like, if I'm having casual sex, do I feel good? Do I feel good about it? How do I feel the next day? Do I feel like I have less time for dating people otherwise? Do I feel like I have less energy? Do I feel like I would have more, I don't know, time, energy, whatever it is to date more seriously if I wasn't doing these things? I think those are sort of like the more important questions to ask rather than like, doesn't align with my goals, because I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. To speak for men, I feel like you would say they're pursuing both all the time.
Right. I completely, you and I are on the same page as far as like, I think this is a very glaring example of my words or my spells. Because she has put, when you talk about like prioritizing a relationship and my goals, it sounds like she's like in a business meeting. Like this sounds like her like.
That's where the desperately want one comes in. And I think that word, even like you said, like that word desperately.
Right. And I think, and especially when she says, I was on Field, a commitment-free sex app. Who told you that's what Field is? Like, what would you call Field? I would call Field a kink app, I guess. But I would also say that like you can find all types and sorts. I was on that app. You find people that are like, they'll say they have 30 million different explanations of what they're looking for. You'll see people, I'm looking for something casual but consistent. To me, consistency is the opposite of casual.
Right.
But this is what they're looking for. People are really open to what they're looking for. I think this person is so caught up in black and white, names of things, like black and white version of a boyfriend, black and white version of casual, black and white version. Everything she wrote to us about, she could be interpreted 7,000 other ways. Like she says, I don't like casual, sex casually anymore, but I have this sex drive and I really like having sex. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you get rid of all these words that you have definitions for already pre-existing?
Right. Or like the stigma around all those things.
Right.
Why don't you take the judgment out of all of it? Right.
There's so much judgment. Even calling it a commitment-free sex app, that's like a judgment of anyone going on there looking for commitment. No, you could. I think she needs to. This is a motto that I have that I think for sex, especially, is very helpful. And it goes back to like having your standard and like and asking for what you want and being more powerful. Is just because I have doesn't mean I will.
Right.
And if you repeat that to yourself when you're dating someone, she doesn't like casual sex. The way she talks about it, it sounds like it's junk food. Feels good in the moment. She feels bad after. She starts to regret, well, I'm not getting towards my goal of having a boyfriend that I desperately want. Is the casual sex ruining that for me? It's probably like me and nighttime eating, where like I get drunk and I nighttime eat and I go, if I just did nighttime eat, I'd feel good in the morning and have the morning I really wanted to have.
Right.
You know, and if I got rid of that thing, but if I looked at it differently, you know, and if you gave yourself, I think if
took the judgment out of it.
Took the judgment out of it, it just happened. And I think like if she meets someone on a field and she's starting out as this is a commitmentless app, she'll always fail.
Right.
So if she goes on Field, let's say, or goes on Hinge or whatever dating app, and she considers it a dating app, to all these men that she's seeing, none of them are looking at it as a sex, you know, they have no rules. They're just
right. You're not like, any girl
chick
I go out with on Field is not someone that I could be in a relationship with.
Right.
Right.
So I think she's put those rules on herself. So I think she needs to go into dating a little bit more woo-woo, a little bit more like mystic. Words are your spells, a little bit more crystals, put a crystal in her asshole, start rubbing that. Maybe she finds a guy who likes that. But I think she needs to repeat to herself what she's looking for and stop abiding by these rules that she's created for herself. There's no God of dating. We just had this whole conversation about cuffing. How many dates? Different to everybody.
Right.
But no one's going to tell you what to do, and no one's going to tell you whether you thumbs up, did it right, or thumbs down. This is the kind of the problem with social media too. Like, are you good or are you bad? No, you just are. So like for her, if I were her looking for a boy, hey, it's okay to say I want a boyfriend. It's okay to say I like having sex. It's okay to have sex with someone on the first date and then say to that person, hey, I'm like looking for a boyfriend, and going on a second date with them and then realizing.
It goes back to what we were just talking about with cuffing season. Like, ask the right questions. You can do whatever you want to do, and just if you're asking the right questions to get you closer to whatever your goal is.
Right. So like the idea that like the casual sex is ruining it. You calling the sex casual is ruining it.
Right.
Like, hey, if I have sex with you, this is important to me. I kind of want like a little consistency here. Oh, you can't do that? Okay, I'll move on to someone else. So you're always going to find people who will fuck you.
Right.
You know, like I know that's something that people say from the outside, and it doesn't feel that way. But you can always
find someone else, right? Especially if your bar is not high of like, I need this person to be my husband. You can definitely find someone to sleep with you.
Totally. And I think she needs to like listen. If you're feeling the moment, go through with it. But just because you have doesn't mean you will.
Yes.
Go on that second date. And I think some people avoid that second date or avoid like getting in touch with them because, we slept together the first time. Why? Go through with it. Do you think sex on the first date will change the odds of a relationship working out? I just think you're going to find out the truth quicker.
Right.
That's all you find out from sex on the first date.
If they weren't into you, they weren't going to be into you anyway.
Right. No. You're going to find out they want casual right away.
The reason
as opposed to 4 dates in, is this casual or consistent? You know.
Agreed. And the reason I always say, like, if you don't do it, if that's something that means a lot to you, is just that it might make you more interested in them than you would be otherwise.
Right.
Not about how interested they are in you.
But that's the whole thing. You have to stick to I statements.
Right.
If you stick to I statement, not
when I sleep with someone, I become, I usually feel more intimately connected to them.
I feel more into it, and I don't like how I feel after having sex with someone on the first date.
Yes.
And not, well, they met me on Field, so they think this is... No.
Right.
And
that's a vulnerable statement, but I actually think that's the thing that actually gets the other person to think more than anything else.
Absolutely. When someone... You're on the other side of that, you're like, I can hurt this person.
Yes.
And you're like, I think people generally don't want to hurt people.
I think women kind of like assume, or at least I used to, that men would know that. And I don't think that that's like necessarily the case. And I think that like I've said that to people, and you actually find that actually changes the behavior of the person on the other side of the table more than anything else you could say, more than I don't really, I don't have sex on the first date,
Right.
or I don't whatever, like or your whatever your rule is. I do this because it makes me feel like that. Actually, is the only thing that's going to make someone feel a certain way, and that brings you like even closer, even if they don't wind up working out. That's someone who like understands you more.
Right.
It's an intimate, real conversation.
Totally. Let's take a break, and then we're going to come back with some awkward encounters. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do an awkward encounter. You ready?
I'm ready.
J&J, a few months ago, I was in my first situationship after my 5-year relationship ended, and in my feral rebound phase.
That sounds like a fun spot to find someone in.
Feral rebound phase. It's like she was hiding in a bush.
Right? Unmuzzled.
Yeah. I found myself putting up with some bizarre behavior I normally wouldn't. This guy I was hanging out with for 2 to 3 months was very adamant about not wanting to be in a relationship. But then one night during sex, he said, "Oh, you love me, don't you?" I was like,
maybe.
That is he proceeded to pin down my arms and say, "I'm not letting you up until you tell me you love me."
Oh my God, what a monster.
I awkwardly said like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And he awkwardly unpinned my arms and carried on. Afterwards, I was like, so what the hell was that? He said that sex feels better when the person really likes him. I said, do you love me? He said he didn't want to have that conversation.
That's the best part of this whole the
Unbelievable.
whole thing. Like, whoa, love. You want to have that conversation like,
tell me you love me, baby.
Not naked?
Yeah, wait a minute. I only do that when I'm inside of you.
This guy sounds like the worst.
So I told him it was pretty uncomfortable to have him trying to tease some kind of one-sided vulnerability out of me. He apologized and said it wouldn't happen again, then proceeded to do the exact same thing the next time. I finally ended it, thankfully, but is that not bizarre and douchey behavior? Love newly back on these streets. What
It
do you
is
think?
both bizarre and douchey.
Let me take his side for
No,
the untakeable side.
Okay.
I will take the untakeable side. I think when you're in the throes of sex, this is his kind of version of talking dirty. It is weird and douchey.
He said very adamant about not wanting to be in a relationship. If you're hanging out with someone for 2 to 3 months and you're very adamant about not wanting to be in a relationship, that's what she says.
Right.
And then you try to get them to tell you that you love them during sex. You are a manipulative piece of shit.
Right. Yeah, I guess the only way I can see it
And then
is
they
like,
tell you it makes them uncomfortable and then you do it again.
It's really
Where's the defense?
I guess the defense is he could say it in a different way. Like, do you love what we're doing? I guess like
That's not what he said though.
no. Oh,
I'm not
don't
gonna
you?
let you up until you tell me you love me. Like fuck
That's a
you.
lot.
This guy, there's nothing redeemable here.
Right. I'm not gonna let you up until you tell. Yeah, that's bad.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
manipulative. It's like mean. If you're dating someone, if you're hanging out with someone who clearly has mentioned something about getting more serious,
Right.
and then you are trying to get them to tell you you kind of you sense that they like you more than you like them, and then you try to manipulate and use that to build yourself up for the 30 seconds that it makes you feel good.
Right.
And then after they're done being emotionally vulnerable with you, you can go back to like making them feel like shit.
Yeah, I'm wrong. I guess I was seeing it without the context of like they're kind of in their will they, won't they, and he knows he has this kind of power to say that he's trying to get to something he already knows, which is like she might want something more.
Right. Even all of it where he said sex feels better when the person really likes him. Not when like we really like each other. Just when you really like me.
Right. The only way I can get hard is if I'm told I'm loved. And
right.
I can, be in this power position.
No, this man is awful. It is very douchey behavior, and I wish him the worst.
Right. Well, from us to you in this holiday season, we wish you the worst.
We wish you the worst. We wish you an unmerry Christmas.
Let's do the email. You ready?
Let's do it.
Go for it.
Hey, J&J and the whole team. I was diagnosed with a non-cancerous tumor a few months ago, right after my 23rd birthday.
Listen, we wish them the best.
We do.
It could be worse. They could never have had a boyfriend at 27.
That's
so
true.
I mean, there are worse.
That's the true nightmare. The good news is that I don't have cancer and it's not killing me.
There we go.
That is good news. Definitely a bright spot. The bad news is I do have a lot of doctor's appointments, new meds to get used to, and a fun array of weird medical problems to deal with.
Ay.
I'm writing to you, my love doctors, because at the same time I've been going on this physical health journey, I've been trying to get back into dating.
A lot.
Yeah. I went through a breakup last winter, and after a bit of fun, I'm officially ready to get cuffed this fall. I'm worried that my medical issues might scare guys away, and I'm also worried that dealing with my medical issues is too much to ask of someone I just met anyway. What's a fair way to bring this up with someone I'm seeing so that they don't feel trapped? When is it okay to start being open about my medical struggles? Should I start wearing lingerie to the hospital and see if I can snag a hot med student? For real, thanks for any thought you might have, and thanks for being a light during my dark days. All my love, J number 3.
Well, we're so happy you're doing on the road to recovery.
Yes.
Thank you for writing in. This is a great email,
Good
and
question.
I love their perspective because
Mhm.
it's like, I got this shit going on. I want to date.
Right.
I'm getting back out there.
Life moves on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
23-year-old non-cancerous tumor, ready to get back out there.
I respect it. Yeah.
Just their perspective
Yeah.
is fun. And with such a very, heavy topic. There's something I don't understand.
Right. Yeah.
In
She
the
doesn't
email.
really give. One thing I would say is like she doesn't really give the details of how this might affect dating her, or
Right.
what the extent. I know she says she has a lot of like medications and things, but like how that would affect someone who was in a relationship or dating her or any of that stuff, which to me makes it a little bit more difficult to answer the question.
It's tough too because I'm also worried that dealing with my medical issues is too much to ask of someone I just met anyways. I don't know what that
What does
means.
that look like?
Right. What does
Right,
that look
yeah.
like? I do think you have, like if someone said to me, I have a non-cancerous tumor that I'm dealing with and I just found out
Mhm.
about it, I'd be more just curious.
Right.
I'm
yeah.
like,
I don't
what-
think it wouldn't make me turned on or turned off. I would
Right.
be like, I don't think that would affect how I would feel about them or my ability to pursue the relationship.
Right. If they are like, my meds make me more tired, of course. Listen,
Right.
I get it. Like,
Yes, my meds make me, that's what I'm saying. Like, is it my meds make me more tired? Is it I can't really like I can't really drink
Right.
during these things. I can't be out late. I can't really be I can only hang out one night a week because I have all these other, like, what does that look like?
Right.
Is it like, does it affect how she, like, her mindset? Is she going to be in a bad mood a lot of the days because she's going through all this treatment? Like, I think it's like, to me, it's like getting a grasp as someone dating this person. That would be like the information that I would think would be good to know, even if not necessarily because it would affect if I'd want to date them or not, more that it would just like explain behaviors that I could otherwise take personally.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because nothing you just mentioned offhand of, again, we don't know what's going on, but like everything you just said are like neutral things to me.
Right. Not things I would be like, well, I'm not dating someone because
Right.
they're doing that.
Like a burden to me if I liked the person.
Right.
And in the beginning, like letting someone, I think getting ahead of it, here are the pros and cons of dating me is just everyone's conversation, whether you have a non-cancerous tumor or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I should make that my dating app bio.
Whether you have a non-cancerous tumor or not.
There are pros and cons to dating me, non-cancerous tumor or not.
Right, yes.
I just think like whatever your situation is just is,
Right.
like, and again, we've said this on this podcast before. Everyone's holding 2 suitcases.
Right, everyone's
full
got
of
their own
baggage.
baggage,
Everyone's got
yeah.
baggage. Ignoring the baggage is way worse than acknowledging there are 2 suitcases in your hand.
Yes.
If someone with 2 suitcases looked at me and goes, "What suitcases?"
And this
I'd be
is-
like,
This
"You're a
is
crazy fucking person."
Right. These are 2 suitcases, and this is how I carry them.
Right.
And this is what I need to get them through the door. Is something that everyone has, and I think much more
Totally.
important the way you explain it and describe it than anything that you could possibly have. Everyone has something that they're dealing with that doesn't make them the most ideal person in the world.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of like even one thing of this situation
That would be like
listen, I'm not
maybe
saying
the
it's
drinking.
the drinking, maybe, yeah. Hey, I can't drink because of and it's like, even if I was like, well, when do we go out? How do we get to know each other? Oh, we can go for coffee. And then and maybe I go on a couple coffee dates with you. I'm like, this isn't really how I get intimate with someone. And maybe that's why I bail. But like, someone does get intimate that way.
Right.
This isn't like
It's okay to turn to that someone's not for you.
Right. And maybe you're put in situations, as she says, wear lingerie to the doctor. I think that's funny, but like, it's also a form of truth of like, where are you going to be social? Like where do you go out? How are you going to meet people? The apps give you this opportunity to meet people in a internet way and bring that to somewhere else. And that's probably why she's a little nervous, because you're meeting people that like don't, that aren't at the hospital,
And I think a lot of this is sort of like what we were saying before about your words are like spells. How do you describe and own? And that's true of anything. Again, any quote unquote baggage that you might feel that you have. The way you describe it, I think, leads the other, totally affects how the other person thinks of it.
Right.
If you say,
I have a tumor.
No.
I'd be like, oh my God, are you going to die?
I mean,
non-cancerous. I'm not going to die. Okay. Could you say that first, please, next time?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it is a little bit like, to describe this on a date is like, and I have this actually like, I've got to get home because I have this super early procedure tomorrow. I have this like, kind of like medical issue that I've been dealing with. That's like sometimes kind of annoying. Yeah.
I mean, it could be that. It could be as small. I mean, it could also be, listen, I went through some shit this year.
Right.
What's going, nice to meet you. My 23rd birthday, I actually found out I had a tumor. It's non-cancerous. I'm not going to die. I'm just going through like, the medication makes it so
that's a better way to do it.
Yeah, right. Like medication makes it so I like, and again, if someone's not curious, they're not curious about you. They weren't going to be curious about anything you talked about. Like, these are kind of, again, to go back to the cuffing season discussion of like built-in dates that let you know answers to questions about people. Again, keep things in I form.
Yes.
I want to know if someone is going to seriously date me. Well, bringing up your non-cancerous tumor is actually a pretty good way to get to know someone pretty quick.
In an intimate, vulnerable way.
Right.
Yes.
Do they ask more questions? Are they curious? Like,
did you like the way that they handled that information? You can judge them based on it.
Totally. Right. I think this make it your power. Like I have that with like, with my non-cancerous tumor comedy. When I tell someone I'm a stand-up comedian, you get all sorts of responses.
Right.
I know the feeling.
And that's how you judge them.
Right. And I know the feeling I get, a little pit in my stomach. I didn't like how they answered that. I didn't like how they responded to that.
Yeah. Well, that's are you connecting?
Right.
That's you judging your connection.
I had a date with a woman and I was very impressed by her. She had her own business, and I'm like sitting there like, oh my God, like asking questions about it. I thought it was so cool how it started. And then like, she took no interest in, like, almost demeaned what I did. Like, almost kind of put me down a little bit. And I was like,
it doesn't feel good.
It felt horrible. And I'm like, well, I'm not,
right,
I didn't say
but
it
your
to them,
thing
but
wasn't like, I can't date until I'm no longer a comedian.
Right.
Or like, I need to change my career path. You were like, I need to find someone whose response to this makes me feel like we are more connected, like better.
Exactly.
Right.
And to compare it to a tumor is a little bit of a stretch. I agree,
sure,
but
yes.
like this is the only way I can understand. Like, to me, this is like, you are blessed with this tumor.
Yeah.
Are we gonna keep that in?
No, I mean, in some way, I think in some ways,
I think there's a way
I know what
what
you're saying. Like, it is your way to see if the person that you were sitting across from has the ability to understand with you, and you can find out if they're an empathetic person, if they're an understanding person, the way they react to things. It can tell you a lot about how the other the other person. You can judge them based on it.
Do you need to bring it up on the first date?
No, I don't think you need to bring it up on the first date, but I don't think you can't bring it up on the first date. I think it's the kind of thing where, like, if things are going well and you feel comfortable with the person, I would bring it up as just like part of telling someone about who you are. And that could be the first date, that could be like the fifth date, it could be kind of like whenever you feel like that's something that you feel that person makes you feel comfortable enough to even share that.
The funny part about all this, they're asking this question, but like, the person that they're comfortable with enough to tell this to is going to be the right person to tell it to. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that's hard advice to like hear, because you're like, well, who's this hypothetical person? Like, I'm just saying, like, someone has to earn information from you, whatever that information is. They earn it by being someone you trust.
Right.
And if you're on a date with someone you trust them, oh, and like, yeah, this year's been pretty shitty. I would love, and you bring them into your world. And that person that you trust, you're generally pretty right about usually. And that's why like people write in us are like, you're not going to believe what happened with this guy who pinned me down to tell me, like, how did I get?
I wouldn't tell that guy.
Right. Like, but I think like, that's why people feel so deceived by people they date. They're like, I had you were the one I trusted to say all this stuff to. And then you became this monster.
Right.
And I think she's so afraid of the monster that, and I understand that.
Or she's afraid of turning someone not being interested in her because she comes with this quote unquote baggage.
Right. I think what will end up happening is she'll end up liking the person she tells it to, and they're going to respond correctly. Like but like, I think owning that like someone has to deserve that information.
Right.
Is like, that's again, and the way they respond to it, it's going to make, I think also like the idea of like date, if I was this person, be up for a date. Don't just go on dates to go on dates. Don't feel like, oh my God, I need to go on like dates and even while you're not feeling well.
Yeah.
I think that's like, you can put yourself in positions of like, I'm missing out, so I got to rush to go on dates.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
for
don't do
her,
that.
like,
go when you feel like good, when you have the
Right.
energy, when you feel like you're going to be the best version of yourself.
Right. Because like, I think there's this like rush to like, well, I'll go out any night, they'll go out. No, go out when you're like, feeling.
You got your own
like,
shit to do.
Right. No, going on a date where you feel like shit.
You're never right. You might. It's not like, I don't believe in like going out as a numbers game at the expense of attitude.
Right. Let's play some games.
Let's do it. All right.
Playing Red Flag Dealbreaker. We love a Red Flag Dealbreaker. You ready?
I'm ready.
Howdy, J&J. I'm a 27-year-old woman dating a 26-year-old for about 6 months. I live alone. He lives with his mom. Our relationship is fun and loving and all the things. However, despite him living with his mom and dating for 6 months, I have spent less than 2 hours in total with his mom.
She's got the clock running.
Tick, 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 tick. Birthdays have passed, holidays, etc., and I have never been included in any family event or get-together. I have not met his friends either, though he does not see them regularly. I try to ask about family members and things happening, though I hardly get any information out of him. My dilemma, if it isn't obvious enough, is that although we are partnered, I do feel like we are not equally sharing our lives together. I share all aspects of my life with him and have felt incredibly vulnerable, and it is lonely to not get the same back. He rarely tells me about his family or includes me in on things happening in their life. I told him this makes me sad and worried he doesn't see a future with me, and his response is that I make him feel guilty for spending time with his family. Is this a red flag or deal breaker? Sincerely, girl that just wants to be included. What do you think?
It's weird that he's making her feel guilty about wanting to spend time with his family when she's not telling him that he shouldn't spend time with his family. She's asking why she's also not invited to spend time with his family.
Right. No, this is bad.
A little bit gaslighty to me.
This is, to me, like...
Because she's not like, why are you hanging out with your parents, not me? She's like, why are you not inviting me to your mom's birthday dinner?
Right. This is the thing. This is cuffing season. Mm-hmm. This is exactly the built-in. She even brought up, like, again, these are the dates in the calendar that are built in.
Right.
That
she has hard evidence.
Hard evidence. Hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? What are we doing for Thanksgiving? What is your family doing? My family's doing this. Oh, we're doing nothing. What are your friends doing for the holidays? You have friends that you're getting together with. It's not growing. You're hovering in one area of you're 6 months in with someone who's acting like you're 3 dates in.
Yes. And she's saying like, there's a lot of vulnerability on my side and I'm not getting that back. I think the other question to ask yourself is like, do you actually like this person? Is there a real connection there? If you feel like, because to me, that's a big part of your connection, overall connection with someone. It's like a two-way vulnerability. If we're together 6 months and I feel like I'm the only one being vulnerable, I'm the only one letting you into my life. I don't know if I like that. Like, I think she could take a step back, think about, am I having a good time? Do I like this person? Do I like the way we connect with each other?
What are they even talking about? like you're 6 months in, you did like, all the conversations.
Right.
The
where you went to school.
Right.
Yeah.
These conversations are all family and friends and getting together and having people to talk about together and like, this is the next step.
Right. That is the relationship.
Right.
So she's like, we're in a relationship officially, but we don't have a real relationship.
What are they even doing?
Right.
I would wonder. I'm with you, Jordana. When does she get turned off?
Right.
At what point does she say to him, hey, I don't even know what we even talk about?
Agreed.
Like,
Yeah.
like we go on date. Do they even go? I mean, they might go on dates, but like,
Yeah. And to me, the deal breaker isn't that he's not doing this necessarily, because maybe there's a world where like you just, you're not close with her. There's a reason. She's explicitly telling him how this makes her feel, and he's still not having a real conversation with her.
right.
To me, that's the deal breaker, is like, I bring you a vulnerable feeling of, I want to share my life. I want to be included in your life. I want to be brought into your life because we're dating. And he's saying, you're making me feel guilty for hanging out with my family. That's the deal breaker. Not that he's
Right.
not inviting her to enough things.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like, to act like she's a crazy person.
Right.
For wanting to meet your friends and hang out with you and create memories together. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like
you gotta ask
that's what
yourself.
a relationship is.
Right.
Yeah. Seems like he doesn't want a relationship. Seems like he wants someone that
Yeah.
he is casually dating.
That's what it appears like.
Right.
So he can hang out with his mom in the basement. It's Nick
Deal
Dorka.
breaker.
She's dating Nick Dorka.
Let's do another.
All right. Hey, J&J. I matched with a guy on Hinge. Let's call him Mark. I've started to notice that he changes his profile almost every day.
Every day.
That's a lot of editing. We've gone out about 4 times, and I see he changes it on the day or close to the day we're supposed to meet. Not a full change, maybe a pic or two and a prompt. I find this hilarious. Do you? Do you?
Yeah, right.
Do you? He just got out of an 11-year relationship, and I think this is his way of figuring it out. He's 31 and hasn't been single since 19. My friends, on the other hand, seem to think it's weird AF and a sign that he's not mentally ready to be dating. So I'm asking you, J&J, what do you think? Red flag or deal breaker? He's a serial Hinge updater. I think it's a bad sign.
It's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's like, it's not. Listen, I don't think people should go and check people's Hinge profiles to see if they changed it.
Right.
I guess if
But
you want to,
you already looked.
right? You already looked.
Yeah.
He's changed it. You think it's hilarious. I don't think it's funny.
Right.
Like I
Unless you think like being on the precipice of being dumped is funny.
right, or that he's comparing. It's very it feels you're being compared because when you changing your Hinge profile, changing your dating profile,
Seeing if you can get better matches.
yeah, you're basically changing up the bait on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if this catches me better fish, bigger fish, and that's the only reason to do that.
Right. If you were really enjoying your time with someone, I don't think you would be spending as much time on your profile in that moment.
Right, and there's a difference between casually swiping while on the toilet and changing your profile.
Right. One is
to
proactive and one is sort of reactive.
Right. And so the idea that he's on the app is totally normal and fine. The idea that he's zhuzhing it up to find a date that he thinks is hypothetically out there. And based on the 31, hasn't been single since 19, I'm sure he's there's no one that's more addicted to dating apps than that person right out of a relationship.
Right. They want to. Well, the other thing is someone who's been in a relationship since they're in high school or college has this desire to see where they land on the market. I think there's a sense of, and maybe this is especially true for men. I think that there is a thing where men out of a long-term relationship that they were in early are I have no idea what I could get.
Right.
Let's
see who.
Yeah. A man who's never been on an app before.
Yeah. And how many months out are they? He just got out of an 11-year. I don't know how long after this 11-year relationship you're coming in contact with him, but I think if you're looking for something serious, you have to let him know that.
Right.
And
4 dates in, you can let someone know that.
Yeah, I think it's this is the time to be hey, even saying to him, I was on Hinge the other day and I saw you change your profile around. If you're kind of looking for, a little casual thing, I'm looking for something that's progressing.
Right. And I think it's okay to let them know that before the 5th date.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm looking for something that's going to progress and head towards a relationship.
Right.
And
it's tough with those guys because sometimes you're oh, he's been in a relation. He's long-term relationship guy. He must love being committed to someone.
The problem with long-term relationship guy, when you date them, they date you as if you're their girlfriend.
Right.
They're used to dating as if they're in a long-term relationship. So it feels very comfy cozy. It feels
and in your mind, you're this is a guy who commits. He has no issue being with someone for 10 years.
And he knows how to dress. He knows how to make a reservation. It's yeah, his ex trained him, bought those clothes for him, told him if you don't make a reservation, I'll be fucking pissed.
Might be a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. This is Wolfie.
Yes. All right, let's do one more.
One more. J&J, thank you for all the laughs and making my rainy dog walk so much more enjoyable. I have a red flag or deal breaker for you. He only has one set of cutlery. Some background. I'm a 31-year-old female, have been on 3 dates with a 35-year-old male. We met on Hinge. We had some very fun dates, and I've been pretty excited about it all. Date 3, we plan to get a drink, then some snacks at a bougie grocery store nearby, and watch a spooky movie. All his idea and plan. When it was time to eat the food we'd gotten back at his apartment, he admitted that he has only one set of cutlery. This man only owns one fork, one knife, and one spoon. So he gives me the fork and proceeds to use one of his daughter's toddler-size forks, she is 3, to eat. And he did not just move, he's lived there for years. What do you all think? Cheers, a bet who has reached a fork in the road.
The fact that this guy is a dad with one set of cutlery makes it worse.
I totally agree.
Although I do think it's a good sign that he gave her the adult grown-up fork and he took the kid one for himself. That's a generous move.
Good for him.
That's you know, if you're gonna, if this is the worst situation, he's made it a little bit better by doing that. I think it's a little weird that he has if he was a 35-year-old man, I would still think it was weird. The fact that he's like a dad, I'm like, are you responsible at all?
35-year-old man moved out to an apartment after a breakup, one set of cutlery. I'm fine with it. Like, I think, like, he doesn't eat at home a lot. He lives in the city. It's a lot of DoorDash. One set of cutlery. I don't want to wash things. This is a in-between apartment for me. I'm, like, speaking for myself at this point.
He's
like,
lived there for years?
I'm just saying this is an in-between. I'm not going to live here forever, but I came from somewhere else. This is where I am. This is not my home.
Took us from my parents' house.
I took their one fork and one knife, and I went on my own. The kid makes it worse because now you're bringing up a kid.
Right. You got a child. You got a responsibility.
Right. It's tough. I mean,
it wouldn't be a great look.
No.
I think if he had 3 of each, I could deal with 3. If he had 3 forks, 3 knives, 3 spoons.
Oh yeah, that's a full set. That's
not a full set.
You went to Target, got that one like box.
I'm saying
it kind of looks nice.
Like, I do think being able to have one person over to your home by 35 should be. You have 3 forks.
I do, but I mean, I couldn't have someone at my home. You've seen my home. I don't know.
You could bring someone back. You wouldn't be cooking with them. But
no, we're not gonna have like a date night at my apartment.
You could have it. You would have an extra fork for them.
Yeah, extra fork. Plastic bowl.
Maybe, I mean, you don't have a kid.
A souvenir cup I've had since the 80s.
Would you be more embarrassed about that fact if you had a daughter?
Yeah, I think I'd be like, I'd be embarrassed of it now to have one set of cutlery.
Yeah, one is tough. How many do you have?
I got a bunch.
You got a full set.
But I have like the odds and ends. Like I have like a.
It's not like a matching set.
Yeah. This isn't the fine china that you're gonna put out at Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think you've got to have 3. If you don't have 3, it might be a deal breaker. It sounds a little arbitrary, but
you just gotta look like you aren't gonna disappear off the map.
Right. This looks like a guy who's like has an excuse all ready to go for why it's not gonna be a thing.
I don't got any cutlery. How can I be in a relationship?
Right. Yeah. I've got my daughter. I need
right.
Wash her spoon.
I've said this here, many times I've said it on benefits episodes, like where my life isn't set up for getting to know someone and being intimate with someone. Mm-hmm. When someone has one set of cutlery, it is a little bit of a sign.
Yeah.
That like they are still in the in-between.
I agree.
And that's why I mentioned the in-between is someone who, when I moved to the apartment I live in now, it was like, okay, I'll go there until I figure out the next step. And now I've been there years. So I do understand.
Yeah, I can understand how it can happen. I also do think it's a sign of like, yeah, maybe like this guy, you're not necessarily like have a life built for like adding someone into it.
He's living like a sniper.
Yes. One fork, one spoon, and one knife.
And one match, just in case he's got a...
Yeah, this isn't a guy who's ready to welcome a person into his life.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
Well, we solved dating again.
We did it. Proud of us.
All right, we're going to be back on Friday with our Friday Feels episode. More cuffing content for this cuffing season.
More cuff.
More cuff. Also, if you're a benefits subscriber, there's a benefits episode waiting for you right now if you haven't listened. And it's voicemails from you up listeners. So if you're out there and you're not part of benefits, which gets you 2 extra podcasts a month, Also, it gets you
ad-free, day early.
Ad-free, day early. That is what they call a deal.
And you can be part of our special little community where we say things that we wouldn't say publicly.
It is a very personal podcast that we do twice a month there. So if you want to be involved with that, subscribe.betches.com to join the You Up with Benefits community. That's right. So we'll be back on Friday. Boom.
The You Up podcast is produced by Belle Roman and Candace Maniga. Edited by Belle Roman. Social media by Candace Maniga. Guest booking by Ali Friedlander. VP of podcast is Chris Allen. And be sure to follow You Up at you.up.podcast.